Now, the other day, Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, did an interview with The Wrap where she mainly discussed the success of The Mandalorian, as well as giving a few little insights of sorts into the future direction of Star Wars, or what their plans for it are, or how they're going to figure out those plans, because they're apparently not set in stone just yet. And though the Mandalorian talk was your standard Q&A about everything from Baby Yoda or the child to the technology used on the show and all of that, nothing all too interesting or that we hadn't heard talked about or discussed before, her three-part response when asked about what she said at the end of last year when the Rise of Skywalker came out, about how she wanted to take time and think about where the franchise is going, and if she was still doing that, what she said to that was a bit more interesting. And in the first part of her response, she said, "Oh yeah, it's an ever-evolving process. You know, when I personally came into this, George had already been having conversations with his previous actors, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill. There was a saga that the fans loved and never finished. He always talked about doing 9 movies, and he was ready to complete that, and so our focus had been from the beginning on finishing the saga." Okay, so I obviously don't know what Lucas may have said behind the scenes or personally to Kathleen Kennedy over the years, and she is of course a longtime friend of his, but for a long while there, after the prequels were done, Lucas was adamant that there was no Episode 7. A lot of people will likely still remember the 60 Minutes interview he did shortly after they were done, where he said or was asked this.
What if someone else beside you came to you and said, "I want to make Episode 7"? Could you see that happening?
No.
No, absolutely, positively, you're really closing the door without any
Right.
wiggle room whatsoever.
Right. There is no Episode 7.
And yeah, certainly Lucas is allowed to change his mind, and again, who knows what he was saying behind closed doors to his friends the whole time. But for a good long while there, until shortly before he sold to Disney actually, Lucas seemed dead set against doing, or anyone else doing, a sequel trilogy. And I know some will say he was just upset about the way fans reacted to the prequels, and that's why he said what he did. He really wanted to do 9 movies all along, but the fans had disappointed and turned on him over the prequels, so he said it was never going to happen. Even though Lucas then went ahead and dumped his own money into the Clone Wars animated series, which seems like a really odd response or thing to do if the prequel hate really bothered him that much. I mean, what's his thinking there? You all hated the movies, so here's a whole series centered around them for you to hate on that I'll make on my own dime? Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. But what I do know is that Lucas has said many things and contradicted himself many times over the years. And again, who knows what he says to friends behind closed doors about his plans for the future. So I'll give Kennedy the benefit of the doubt here and assume what he told her privately all along about the sequels is different from his public stance or what it once was. However, I'm not going to give her a free pass on what she said next. Which is, and now we're stepping back, stories have been told within the universe over the last 40 odd years, and there's now the realization that this is a mythology that actually spans about 25,000 years, when you really start to look at all the different stories that have been told, whether it's in books and games. So, wait a second here, there's now a realization that stories have been told in universe for the last 40 years, and that they span about 25,000 years in story? Is she literally saying here that she didn't know about the expanded universe till lately? And that would sound absurd if not for what she said last year in regards to the sequel trilogy films, which is that every one of these movies is a particularly hard nut to crack. There's no source material. We don't have comic books, we don't have 800-page novels, we don't have anything other than passionate storytellers who get together and talk about what the next iteration might be. And look, I got angry back then when she said that, and I'm going to try and not get angry again now, but that was about the dumbest thing she could have ever said back then, because that was an insult to so many people. It was an insult to everyone who created something for the expanded universe, be they books, comics, games, or whatever, and it was also an insult to the most dedicated of fans, those who bought and consumed all that stuff during the dark times when there were no movies. And now, after the sequel trilogy is done, after we got an incoherent mess of a story from it, now she realizes that they did have source material all along, or type of source material they could have drawn from, because no, I don't think they had to copy and paste directly from the EU. I do understand they didn't want to be beholden to all of it, and wanted to do something at least to some degree original with the sequels. But that said, they were fools not to look at and draw inspiration from the EU from the very start, since it was so successful with so many fans, and to instead just let two different guys come in and do their own things with the movies that they got to do, which again led to an incoherent mess and no real purpose or meaning behind the whole sequel trilogy. Anyway, trying to look at this positively, or what she said positively, I guess I should be happy that it seems they're going to be drawing inspiration from the EU going forward now, and honestly, if they want to get this right, they just need to canonize the Old Republic nearly as is and then go from there. Sure, they can tweak, change, or add a few things, but by and large, keep the framework intact and don't get fancy with any changes made. Don't think you could do better than what was done before, just remodel it a bit at most, and build up from there. And that's where I think the future of Star Wars lies, in the past, oddly enough. Alright, and now on to the third and final part of what she had to say, which was, we just need the time to step back and really absorb what George Lucas has created, and then start to think about where things might go. That's what we've been doing, and we've been having a great deal of fun doing it, and meeting with lots of different filmmakers and talent. There's so many fans out there and so many filmmakers that have been influenced by Star Wars for so long that it's a fantastic opportunity to get a sense of who wants to be a part of this, so that's what we've been doing. And I mean, that all sounds well and good, great even, but shouldn't that have been what you were doing all along? Shouldn't this all have been what you were doing all along? Trying to really absorb and grasp what George Lucas had done, as well as look at and draw inspiration from what others had done in the Star Wars universe? To meet with lots of different filmmakers and talented people, to find the absolute right people for the job, instead of just going with what's hot now, which is what I feel they did when they hired Benioff and Weiss from Game of Thrones, who then left a short time later. But then, of course, a question or two later, she gets asked this. There are a record number of women directors nominated for Emmys this year, and 3 of your 8 episodes were directed by women, speaking of The Mandalorian. Is that a priority for you? And Kennedy responded, it's absolutely a priority. It's been very exciting to see the talent that comes in, and we're now developing the limited Obi-Wan Kenobi series with Deborah Chow, and she's just been doing a phenomenal job. Okay, so wait, I'm a little confused here. Which actually is the priority? Stepping back and figuring this all out and getting the absolute right people in to tell the right stories, or making sure women are brought in? And don't get me wrong here, I have no issue with, and I'm even for, more women being brought in to write, direct, or star in, or whatever else it might be when it comes to Star Wars. I am all for more women in this franchise, as long as they truly deserve it. Like pretty much all fans, I just want the best Star Wars possible, and I don't care who makes that happen. I don't care if a trained alpaca is brought in if they can write an amazing script or direct the next great Star Wars movie. And I'm glad Kennedy cited Deborah Chow, who directed 2 of the best episodes of The Mandalorian, and who virtually no one was upset to hear would be directing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, because most agree she'll almost undoubtedly do a great job with it, if what she did with The Mandalorian is any indication of her talent and ability. And contrary to popular belief, virtually no one out there, no fans, are against women in Star Wars. There's just frustration from some when they hear they'll be prioritized, because the priority should always be what she said at first, that whoever can do the best job should be brought in to do it. And if that's a woman, so be it, that's great even, but if it's not, so be it as well. And look, I do get the argument from the other side of this, that women sometimes don't get the chances they rightfully deserve, which obviously does happen and is truly wrong and unfair, and I understand wanting to correct that. I want to correct it too. But the problem is, we can't change or make up for the mistakes of the past by doing them in reverse now. We can only strive not to repeat them ever again. And that's why some people get upset about this sort of thing. It's not that they're against women, it's that they're actually for genuine equality right now, where the absolute right person for the job always gets selected no matter what. And another problem with this is when you say we're going to prioritize women, it sort of implies that sometimes they're not actually as qualified as they should be or need to be, but got picked anyway, which is an insult and or unfair to the women who do get the jobs they 100% deserve. It's unfair to put that doubt in the back of their mind about why they got hired. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into this again here and now, but yes, I do get it that you want to make sure things are fair, or that women always get an equal and fair chance, but let's make sure it is indeed equal and fair and not favoritism. Because as any woman who's ever been passed over for a promotion by a less qualified man can no doubt attest to, it sucks and is unfair and should not happen. And so it happening in reverse, it happening to a man now who is not responsible for what happened in the past, won't make up for what happened in the past. It won't make anything right or better. It won't make up for anything. It'll only ensure inequality stays alive. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about what Kathleen Kennedy had to say, or what I had to say about what she had to say. Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.